He laughed at his wife for not giving him a child, even bringing his mistress to mock her in public. For years, she carried the blame in silence, until the day she quietly discovered a truth that would change everything. But when she finally revealed what she had done next, the room fell into a silence no one was prepared for. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Amelia Carter stood quietly by the large window of her bedroom, watching the evening lights slowly come alive across the city. From outside, their house looked perfect, big, beautiful, and peaceful. But inside, her heart felt heavy almost every day. 6 years earlier, when Amelia married Richard Carter, she believed she was the happiest woman in the world. Richard was charming, hardworking, and very ambitious. He owned a fast-growing construction company, and everyone admired his success. Friends often said Amelia was lucky to have such a husband. In the early years of their marriage, Richard treated her like a queen. He bought her flowers without reason, surprised her with weekend trips, and always said, "One day, this house will be full of children's laughter." Amelia believed those words with all her heart. But as the years passed and no pregnancy happened, small changes slowly began to appear in their marriage. At first, Richard only showed little disappointment. He would ask gently, "Maybe we should see another doctor?" Amelia agreed each time, hoping for good news. Doctor visits became frequent. Tests were done again and again. Every time the results came back, nothing serious was found. The doctors would say, "Just keep trying. Sometimes it takes time." Amelia held on to hope. However, after the 4th year, Richard's patience began to disappear. His smile became rare. He stopped coming home early. Phone calls during dinner became longer. Some nights, he did not return home at all, giving simple excuses like business meetings or late office work. Amelia noticed everything, but she remained quiet. She kept telling herself, marriage requires patience. Then one evening, everything changed. Richard returned home wearing a new perfume scent, one Amelia had never smelled before. When she gently asked about it, he replied coldly, "Must you question everything I do?" That was the first time he spoke to her in such a harsh tone. Amelia went to the kitchen silently, hiding the tears that had already formed in her eyes. Not long after, the truth became impossible to ignore. Richard began openly spending time with another woman named Vanessa. She was younger, stylish, and always confident. People started whispering about them at social events. Some even stopped inviting Amelia because they did not know how to handle the uncomfortable situation. The humiliation became worse during company gatherings. Richard sometimes arrived with Vanessa instead of his wife. When someone asked about Amelia, he would laugh and say, "She prefers staying at home." Amelia heard these stories from neighbors and friends, but she still stayed quiet. She kept hoping Richard would one day return to the man she married. The most painful moment came during Richard's birthday celebration at a luxury restaurant. Amelia dressed carefully that evening, choosing a simple blue gown Richard once said he loved. She wanted to remind him of the woman he had once cherished. When she entered the hall, many guests greeted her warmly, but something felt strange. Vanessa was already sitting beside Richard, laughing loudly as if she were the host of the event. Amelia forced a polite smile and took a seat across from them. Halfway through the dinner, Vanessa raised her glass and said jokingly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "A successful man deserves a complete family, not an empty house." Some guests looked down immediately, clearly uncomfortable. Others pretended to laugh lightly. Amelia's fingers tightened around her glass, but she kept her face calm. Richard did not defend her. Instead, he leaned back and said casually, "Well, life must move forward." Those words felt heavier than the insult itself. Amelia slowly stood up. "Excuse me," she said softly, then walked toward the restroom before anyone could see the tears in her eyes. Inside, she held the sink tightly and allowed herself to cry silently for a few minutes. When she returned home later that night, Richard arrived hours after her. He loosened his tie carelessly and said, "Let me be honest, Amelia. I cannot wait forever. A man needs a child. If nothing changes, I will make decisions that are best for my future." Amelia looked at him quietly. Her heart felt broken, but something inside her also became strangely calm. That night, as she lay awake staring at the ceiling, she finally understood something important. For years, she had been living in fear, fear of losing her marriage, fear of being blamed, fear of being called not enough. But slowly, that fear was beginning to turn into something else. A quiet decision was forming inside her heart, a decision that Richard and Vanessa would never expect. And when the time came, their laughter would completely disappear. The next morning, Amelia woke up earlier than usual. The house was still silent, and the sunlight had only just begun to enter through the curtains. She sat at the edge of the bed for a long moment, thinking deeply about everything that had happened the previous night. Richard was still asleep, breathing heavily, unaware that something had already changed inside his wife. Amelia walked quietly to the kitchen and made herself a cup of tea. Her hands were steady, but her mind was full of thoughts. For many years, she had cried, begged, prayed, and blamed herself for something she did not fully understand. But now, she no longer wanted guesses. She wanted the truth. Later that morning, after Richard left for work without saying goodbye, Amelia picked up her handbag, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the house with a clear purpose. Her first stop was a well-known medical center across the city. The waiting room was crowded, but Amelia did not mind. She sat patiently, watching families come and go, some happy, some worried, some holding children, others hoping for one. When her name was finally called, the female doctor welcomed her kindly. "What brings you here today, Mrs. Carter?" the doctor asked. Amelia hesitated for a second, then answered honestly. "I want to do every fertility test available. I want to understand everything clearly." The doctor nodded with understanding. "That is a wise decision. Pregnancy involves both partners, but we will begin with your tests." Several tests were scheduled that same week. Blood samples, hormone checks, scans. Amelia went through each process quietly and bravely. She did not tell Richard. She did not want arguments or insults. This was something she needed to do for herself. Days later, she returned to receive the first set of results. The doctor studied the papers carefully, then smiled gently. "Mrs. Carter, from what we can see so far, everything looks normal. Your body is healthy." Amelia felt surprised. "Normal? Completely normal?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "But pregnancy is a shared responsibility. It is important that your husband also runs tests so we can see the full picture." Amelia thanked the doctor and walked out slowly. As she stepped outside the hospital building, the afternoon breeze touched her face softly. For the first time in years, she felt a small sense of relief, mixed with confusion. If nothing was wrong with her, then what had really been happening all these years? Instead of returning home immediately, Amelia sat inside her car for several minutes, thinking deeply. She remembered every insult, every mocking comment. Every night she cried alone, believing she was the reason for her marriage problems. A quiet strength began to grow inside her chest. That evening, Richard came home late again, speaking loudly on the phone while walking into the house. He barely noticed Amelia, sitting in the living room. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then looked at her briefly. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" Amelia switched on the light calmly. "I just came back from the hospital." Richard frowned slightly. "Again? I thought we already did enough tests years ago." "I wanted to be sure," she replied softly. "And?" he asked impatiently. "The doctor said everything is normal." Richard shrugged carelessly. "Doctors always say that. Anyway, I'm tired. I have an early meeting tomorrow." He walked upstairs without asking any more questions. Amelia watched him disappear up the staircase, her expression quiet but thoughtful. For the first time, his careless reaction did not hurt her the way it used to. Instead, it confirmed something important. If the truth was ever going to be known, she would have to uncover it herself. Over the next few weeks, Amelia visited 2 additional hospitals, repeating the tests carefully. Each time, the results remained the same. She was healthy and capable of having children. One evening, the final specialist looked at her kindly and said, "Mrs. Carter, medically speaking, there is no reason you should not be able to conceive. I strongly advise that your husband also completes a fertility examination. It is very important." Amelia nodded slowly. She already knew Richard would never agree easily. His pride was too strong. But now she was no longer afraid of the truth. As she drove home that night, city lights reflecting across the windshield, a clear decision formed in her mind, calm, firm, and unshakable. Very soon, she would find the full truth. And when that moment came, everything would change. Amelia got home that night feeling strangely calm. The city lights had looked bright through her windshield, but inside her mind, everything was clear and quiet. She was no longer running in circles. She was no longer guessing. She had done her part. Now it was time for the truth to show itself. When she entered the house, she noticed Richard's jacket thrown carelessly on the sofa. His laptop bag was on the floor like someone who didn't care where anything landed. The television was on, but no one was watching it. The house felt empty, even though it was big. Amelia went upstairs and found Richard in the bedroom, talking on the phone again, smiling softly in a way he never smiled at her anymore. When he saw her, his smile dropped quickly. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone and ended the call. He did not ask where she was coming from this time. He did not ask how she was doing. He simply loosened his belt and said, "I'm hungry. Is there food?" Amelia nodded calmly. "Yes. It's in the kitchen." Richard walked past her without a thank you. Amelia stood there for a second, then slowly sat down on the edge of the bed. She looked at her hands and remembered the doctor's words. "Your husband must also be tested." For years, Richard had been calling her the problem. He had allowed Vanessa to insult her, even in public. He had made her feel like she was not a complete woman. But now Amelia had a new kind of courage. Not loud courage. Quiet courage. The kind that plans carefully and speaks only when it is ready. The next morning, Amelia made breakfast as usual. Richard came downstairs dressed in a sharp suit, smelling expensive, looking like a man who believed he could never be wrong. Amelia placed his coffee on the table gently. "Richard," she said softly. "What?" he replied without looking up from his phone. "I want us to visit the doctor together," Amelia said. "Not for me. For us." Richard finally looked up, his eyes narrow. "We've done this before." "I did tests again," she said calmly. "All the results came out normal." Richard scoffed lightly. "So, what does that change?" "It changes everything," Amelia replied, still calm. "Because if I am not the problem, then we need to check the full picture." Richard's expression hardened. "Are you saying I'm the problem?" Amelia did not flinch. "I am saying we should know the truth, not guess." Richard pushed his chair back slightly. His pride rose quickly like fire. "I'm not doing any test. I don't have time for that nonsense." He grabbed his keys and stood up. Amelia's voice remained gentle. "Then don't do it for me. Do it because you want to be a father so badly. Do it so you can stop blaming the wrong person." Richard's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to shout. But instead, he gave a cold laugh. "You're getting bold," he said. "Careful, Amelia. Don't forget your position." Then he walked out of the house and slammed the door behind him. Amelia stayed seated, breathing slowly. That was all she needed to hear. He would never test himself willingly. So she needed another way. That same week, Amelia visited Richard's company office for the first time in months. She did not go to his floor. She went to the Human Resources Department, where a friendly woman named Mrs. Paula worked. Amelia knew her because years ago, she had once helped plan a company charity event. "Mrs. Carter," Paula said with surprise. "It's been so long." Amelia smiled politely. "Yes, I came to ask something small. Richard mentioned the company is planning another general medical check for staff soon. Is that true?" Paula nodded. "Yes, it happens every year. The executives do theirs too." Amelia's heart beat a little faster, but she kept her face calm. "That's good. I'm asking because Richard is always busy. I want to encourage him to attend. Do you know the hospital they use?" Paula gave her the name of the partner hospital and even wrote it down on a paper. Amelia thanked her and left. As she walked out of the building, she felt her chest rise and fall with quiet determination. The truth was closer than ever. At home that evening, Amelia began to observe more carefully. Richard was hiding his phone more. He smiled at messages and turned the screen away quickly. He took calls on the balcony and spoke in a soft, romantic tone. He started sleeping later and later. But Amelia no longer begged. Instead, she watched. And she planned. 2 days later, Amelia's phone buzzed with a notification from their shared family email account. Richard had forgotten something important. His company sometimes sent health insurance updates and hospital appointment confirmations to that email. Amelia opened it slowly. It was a simple message from the partner hospital. "Dear Mr. Richard Carter, your executive medical screening appointment is confirmed for Tuesday, 10 a.m. Amelia stared at the screen for a long moment. Her heart was not pounding with fear anymore. It was steady. Tuesday. That was her opening. On Tuesday morning, Amelia woke up early again. Richard was already dressing up, humming a small tune, clearly in a good mood. He did not know why. But Amelia could guess. Maybe Vanessa had sent him a sweet message. Richard picked his keys. "I'll be out. Don't wait up." Amelia nodded softly. "Okay." When he left, Amelia waited 10 minutes, then quietly got into her own car and followed him, at a safe distance, careful not to be seen. She watched him drive into the Partner Hospital parking lot and step out, looking confident, like a man who believed nothing could touch him. Amelia parked a little farther away and sat still, watching. Then she whispered to herself, almost like a promise. Today, the truth will start speaking. And inside that hospital, without knowing it, Richard was about to take the first step toward the very thing he feared most. A truth he could not control. A truth that would one day destroy Vanessa's laughter and silence Richard's pride. Amelia sat quietly inside her car, watching the hospital entrance from a distance. People walked in and out, some smiling, some worried, some holding medical files close to their chests. She did not rush. She simply waited. Nearly 2 hours later, Richard finally came out of the building. He looked normal, confident as always, adjusting his suit as if nothing important had happened. He got into his car and drove away without noticing Amelia parked farther down the road. Amelia remained seated for a few more minutes, breathing slowly. Then she stepped out of her car and walked calmly into the hospital. At the reception desk, she spoke politely. "Good afternoon. My husband, Richard Carter, completed his executive medical screening today. I am his wife. I would like to confirm when the full results will be ready." The receptionist checked the system. "The complete report should be ready in a few days, ma'am. Once it is finalized, it will be sent to the registered family email and also kept here for collection." Amelia thanked her and walked out. For the next few days, she continued her daily life quietly, saying little, watching everything. Richard behaved the same way. Late nights, careless words, and open closeness with Vanessa. But Amelia no longer felt crushed. Instead, she felt steady, like someone walking toward an important moment. Then one evening, the email arrived. Amelia was sitting alone in the living room when her phone vibrated. She opened the shared email slowly, her fingers calm. The message was short. Executive Medical Screening Report, available for download. She took a deep breath before opening the attached document. Her eyes moved slowly across the pages. Blood results, general health information, and finally, the section she had been waiting for. Reproductive health assessment. Amelia read the lines carefully. She did not rush. She wanted to be sure of every word. The report clearly stated that Richard's fertility condition was severely limited and that medical assistance would be required for any possibility of biological conception. Amelia lowered the phone gently. For a long moment, she simply sat there, not smiling, not crying, just breathing. Years of silent blame, years of humiliation, years of being called not enough, all rested quietly in that single document. But instead of anger, she felt something else. Freedom. That same night, Richard returned home, laughing loudly on the phone as he walked in. He ended the call when he saw Amelia sitting at the dining table. "What's for dinner?" he asked casually. Amelia looked at him calmly. "There is something we need to discuss." Richard rolled his eyes slightly but sat down. "Make it quick. I'm tired." Amelia placed a printed copy of the hospital report on the table and gently slid it toward him. Richard frowned. "What is this?" "Your executive medical screening results," Amelia said quietly. Richard's face tightened as he began reading. The confidence in his eyes slowly faded. His fingers paused at the fertility section, and he read the lines again, this time more carefully. The silence in the room became heavy. Amelia spoke softly, not with anger, but with calm honesty. "For 6 years, I carried a shame that did not belong to me. I cried alone many nights, believing I was the reason our marriage was breaking. But the truth was simply waiting." Richard looked up, his face pale, unable to speak. "I did not bring this to embarrass you," Amelia continued. "I brought it because truth deserves to be known. Not for revenge, but for peace." She stood up slowly. "I have already made my decision," she said. "I will not continue living where respect no longer exists." Richard opened his mouth slightly, as if trying to speak, but no words came out. Amelia walked toward the staircase, then paused and looked back gently. "Motherhood is not only about giving birth. It is about giving love. And I still believe my future will be full of that love, whether life brings it through birth, adoption, or another path." The next morning, Amelia packed a few personal bags and left the house quietly. She did not shout. She did not argue. She simply left with dignity. Weeks later, news reached Richard through mutual friends. Amelia had completed adoption procedures and had welcomed a little girl into her life. People spoke about how peaceful and happy she looked, how she glowed with a confidence they had never seen before. Richard heard the news in silence. For the first time, he fully understood something painful. The woman he once mocked had not lost anything. Instead, she had found her strength. And somewhere across the city, Amelia sat on a park bench, holding the small hand of her adopted daughter, smiling softly as the child laughed freely in the sunlight. At that moment, Amelia finally understood something beautiful. Some endings are not losses. Some endings are the quiet beginnings of a life filled with real love. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.